This is the video presentation of mind.nvim, which is a plugin that I've been working on for a couple of months now. Mind is an organizational tool that you can use if you're using Neovim. It doesn't work with Vim, it requires Neovim. And I'm going to explain through this video basically how you use that, how you're supposed to use it, all the features. I'm going to explain them all. And at the end of the presentation, I will give you a couple of leads, a couple of clues on how you can extend Mind to create amazing workflows with it. So Mind is an organization tool. It is quite similar to what you might have been using if you're used to the Emacs world and org mode. It is a bit similar to what you would find with Neorg and Vim Wiki, or even the standalone tool Notion. However, it is quite different because it doesn't provide any kind of formatting, while all those tools, even Notion, has the concept of formatting. Mine is just about organizing stuff. It doesn't require any kind of format, so in this presentation I'm going to use Markdown, but if you would like to use org mode or Neorg instead, or even plain text, you can. So in terms of features, what you're going to find with Mind is not related, as I just said, to the content. It's going to be related to documents and IDs and thoughts manipulation, where you can log and capture your thoughts and IDs and tasks and journal and anything very quickly and move them around, modify them, link to them, add some content to them, etc., etc. But the actual content will be anything you want. The first thing you want to do is to open Neovim, and I'm going to open the tree view of Mind. You can enter that command name, so Mind, and then you press tab for getting completion, and you can see a couple of them. And the one we are interested in is Mind open main. Once you have typed that, you can see that you have this side buffer opened on the left side of your window, and you have the root node, which here is called main, which has no node in it, so it's an empty tree. You can see that this is the root node because you have the book icon next to it, and let's start adding some stuff in it. To do that, you press the I key, which means add a node inside another node. So when you press I on a given node, it will create a new node inside of it as a child. So if I press I, you can see this prompt, and by the way, this is a disclaimer, but your view might not look exactly like this. Maybe you will have like the prompt at the bottom of your screen. This is not a Mind feature. This depends on another plugin. I will leave a link in the description so that you can see which plugin I'm using and how you are supposed to do that. It doesn't really matter. It will be the same workflow. I'm going to use a name for my first node, and then I press return, and then you see nothing, but you have this right arrow next to main. You might be used to tree views, so you can collapse and extend the node with the tab key. And now you can see that we have the first node inside main. If I put my cursor back on the main node, on the root, and I press I again, it will add another node at the end. So I will always add a new node at the end of the children of the node that your cursor is currently in. Let's say you'd like to add a node, but you would like to add it at the top instead of at the end. And this is quite obvious, I guess, but it's uppercase I. I press uppercase I, and this should be at the top, and it is indeed at the top. Another thing that I think is useful when you want to create new nodes is adding a node below the current node or above it. And maybe you have guessed, but it works exactly the same way as when you're editing any kind of document in Neovim. You use the O key to insert under the current position, and you use the uppercase O key to insert above it. So here I insert below. So as you can see, it is inserted below, and then if I insert, for instance, here I am with uppercase O, I am above. Let's say we like to just rename a node. You can do that with the R key. So if I press R, I can see that the prompt is pre-filled with the already existing name. This is quite useful when you have typos. So for instance, if you say I am above and you would just like to change the typo, you can just press R and then it's done. You don't have to retype the whole thing. So let's rename that a node name that is quite long. And then actually, that is quite too long to me. I would like to delete that node. Here you have the D key. So if I press D, you can see that it will ask you to delete the node, and it actually prompts you with whether you want to delete it or not. So you can press Y to delete it or N, and N is the default. So if you don't do anything and you press return, it doesn't delete the node. So you have to press D, Y, and return. And you can see here, if I want to delete that one, it will ask me whether I want to delete it. So let's say no. Let's delete this one and this one. And so if I delete this node, you can see that this blue node, by the way, it is blue because it has a node inside of it. The root node doesn't change color because it is the root node. If I delete that node, this node will go back to gray because it doesn't have any children anymore. If you delete the parent node, it will also remove the node that are inside that parent node. So all the children recursively will be deleted. So if I delete that, it's like directory on your file system, basically. And we can delete that one and then we don't have any nodes anymore. Let's say we'd like to implement a workflow based on task management. So we like to have a couple of nodes for work in progress, work for work that has been done for your backlog, and a couple of different ones for stuff that has been killed and frozen and stuff like that. So let's use all the commands that we just learned to do that. I will press I and O to edit and add nodes, and I will just set up the structure that I want for this workflow. So let's start with adding a node for task management, and then inside that I want to have a work in progress. Let's open it with tab.
And then I want to put something below, so let's go with something that's done. I also need something for cancelled, and something else for frozen. Oh, and I also need the backlog.
Here you can see that the order is not quite right. I would like to move the nodes around, and in order to do that, we need to talk about the selection mode. Selection is a way of doing a couple of different things on nodes with a different key map. So this is important because, as you can see, if I press I on a given node, it will create a node inside the node that I'm currently on. Once you have selected something with the X key, so for instance, let's select the backlog and I press X, you can see this red arrow on it. Right arrow on it's left arrow on the right side of the node name, and it means that this node is selected. You can press X on a different node to select another node, and you can press X on a selected node to disable selection, to unselect it. Once I have selected something and I press the I key, it will move that node inside at the end of the current node. So for instance, to do something a bit funny, if I press the I key on task, it will move that node at the end because of the I key. If I use uppercase key, it would move it at the beginning. But if I press I on this node, it's basically going to take the node and put it at the end. I take that one and I press uppercase I, it's going to put it at the beginning of it. And you might have guessed, if I take this one and I press, for instance, the O key to go under, it's going to put it in between those two nodes. So you can reorder stuff very, very easily with this. So in my case, I want
Backlog, I want wait, I want frozen, I want done, I want so this is quite good to me. You can put frozen underneath here, and we are good to go.
So in the backlog, I can do something like talk about nodes operations. All right. We have started that, so I'm going to take this one with X and I'm going to press I to put it inside the work in progress. The problem is that it's not very easy to tell apart what is an actual useful node, something like a content node, and something that is part of the structure of the tree. To ease that process of seeing things, Mind has the concept of icons. The icons in Mind are a bit specific, they're a bit different from the regular text that you get from the nodes. To put an icon, you just press the uppercase R. So if I press uppercase R on backlog, I can change the icon, which currently there is no icon, and I can put anything I want. Something you have to keep in mind is that an icon is considered as a prefix. So even though you're going to put a one character or a couple of bytes for multi-byte, smileys and emojis and stuff like that. There is no restriction on the length that you use for the icon. So here for backlog, I could put something like this, and I could use here done and frozen and cancelled. And for whip, whip is whip. So how do we use there, right? At some point, maybe you might think that those icons, those prefixes are not really good, so we'd like to completely ditch them. Or maybe this one, it should be something like done should be finished. So you would like to change this the end to something else. In this case, you can use the uppercase R to edit, and it is the same as when you try to edit the text of a node. It pre-fill the prompt with the already existing name. So finished, we are going to put it that way, or maybe finished like that, and then you have updated the icons. If you want to completely ditch the icon, you just edit the icon to the empty string. Another way of adding icons is using a different yet very similar feature where you're going to be able to put the icons by fuzzy searching them inside a list. That list is completely user-defined. Mine comes with the default one, but if you don't like it, you can completely ditch it and use your own icons. So the way it works is by using the $key on a given node. So if I press the $key on backlog, I get this view which is using telescope, but it doesn't. Mine doesn't have any dependency on telescope. Telescope is registered as a fuzzy finder to Neovim, so mine will use telescope on my setup. But if you're using FZDef, clap, anything else, it will use that instead. So this is quite important to understand. And then you can fuzzy search the icon that you want. So here we want to go with backlog, so I can go with backlog. For whip, I will go with whip, or maybe it's ongoing on my configuration.
Yes, done. I have this one, frozen and cancelled, and even on task, and task management one. Yes.
And now you can see it looks better. It's easier to look at.